Ladies and gentlemen, motivation is often seen as the magic ingredient to success. But the truth is, it's unreliable. It comes in waves. Some days you feel unstoppable, and other days you can barely get out of bed. If you rely on motivation alone, you're building your life on something that fluctuates constantly. That's why momentum matters so much more. Momentum doesn't wait for the perfect mood or ideal conditions. It's the force that builds from consistent, even small, actions taken over time. Think about a car at a standstill. It takes a lot of energy to get it moving, but once it's rolling, it doesn't take nearly as much effort to keep going. That's momentum. It's self-sustaining. It turns discipline into a habit and movement into progress. When you stop focusing on trying to feel motivated and instead just start moving, no matter how small the step, you create energy. That energy builds confidence, clarity, and drive. Suddenly, you're not depending on a fleeting emotion to push you forward. You've created a forward pull, and here's the best part. The more you do, the easier it gets to keep doing. Each small action reinforces your identity as someone who takes action. Each completed task builds trust in yourself. Momentum transforms effort into flow. It turns struggle into rhythm. You don't need to be fired up every day. You just need to keep going long enough for the process to start working in your favor. Once it does, you won't need to search for motivation anymore. It will be chasing you. Most people wait for inspiration to strike before they take action. They sit around hoping for that magical moment when they'll suddenly feel ready. When the stars align, the fear vanishes, and the motivation kicks in like a lightning bolt. But the hard truth is that moment rarely comes. Waiting to feel ready is one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves. The idea that we need to be inspired before we act keeps us trapped in a cycle of procrastination and self-doubt. We convince ourselves that once we feel more confident, more motivated, or more prepared, then we'll start. But life doesn't work that way. In reality, action comes before inspiration, not the other way around. Think about any time you didn't feel like doing something, going to the gym, studying, showing up to work. But you did it anyway. What happened? After a few minutes of being in motion, something shifted. Your body adjusted, your mind followed. The resistance faded, and suddenly it wasn't so hard. That's because action itself generates energy. When you start moving, even if it's clumsy or uncertain, you trigger something powerful inside of you. You shift your brain from hesitation to execution. And in that shift, inspiration starts to rise. You begin to see progress. You build momentum. And you start to feel motivated, not because you waited for it, but because you earned it through action. This concept flips everything on its head. Instead of waiting for motivation, you manufacture it. You don't sit around hoping the fire will ignite. You strike the match yourself. You take the first step, write the first sentence, make the first call, do the first rep, and let that action light the spark. That's where real power comes from. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who feel inspired every day. They're the ones who act even when they don't. They've learned that feelings are unreliable, but actions are a choice. And when you choose to act in spite of fear, doubt, or laziness, you take control of your direction. Confidence, too, doesn't come from waiting to believe in yourself. It comes from seeing yourself follow through. Every time you do what you said you would, especially when it's hard. You build evidence that you can trust yourself. That evidence becomes confidence, and that confidence feeds your drive to keep going. But none of it happens unless you're willing to move first. Taking action isn't about being perfect. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about starting anyway. Most of the clarity you're looking for will only show up after you begin. You can plan and dream and research all you want, but at some point you have to move. That's where the real learning happens. That's where you discover what you're capable of. Action kills overthinking. It silences self-doubt. It drowns out fear. When you're in motion, your brain has less space to spiral in uncertainty. You become too focused on the task at hand to entertain all the reasons you might fail. Action brings you into the present moment where progress lives. It shifts your identity from a thinker to a doer, from a dreamer to a builder. And that shift over time becomes who you are. So don't wait for the perfect mood. Don't wait to feel brave. Don't wait for everything to make sense. Start small, start messy, start unsure, but start. Because movement creates clarity, movement creates confidence, and movement creates motivation. The first step may be the hardest, but it's also the most important. It's the one that sets everything else in motion. And once you're moving, you're no longer stuck hoping for change. You're creating it. Motivation might get you started, but it's structure and systems that keep you going. Most people believe that the key to success lies in finding a constant source of motivation, something that can keep them fired up every day. But that belief is a trap. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls with your mood, your circumstances, your environment. If you rely on it, your progress will be inconsistent at best. That's why the most successful and consistent people don't depend on how they feel. They depend on what they've built. They don't just rely on passion. They rely on systems. A system is simply a repeatable process, a structure that makes taking action the default instead of the exception. It's the difference between waking up and hoping you feel like working out, versus having a workout schedule that's already part of your day. Systems remove the guesswork. They reduce friction. They eliminate decision fatigue by making the process automatic. When you build a system, you no longer ask yourself, "Do I feel like doing this today?" The answer doesn't matter. You just do it because it's already been decided in advance. People often mistake discipline for some kind of heroic willpower, like it takes extraordinary effort to show up every day. But true discipline isn't about doing hard things constantly. It's about making hard things easier by designing your environment and routine to support the behaviors you want. If your goal is to write a book, relying on inspiration will leave you with a dozen false starts. But if you commit to writing 500 words every morning at 7 a.m., whether you feel inspired or not, you'll eventually have a finished book. That's not motivation. That's systemized consistency. What's powerful about systems is that they compound over time. Just like savings in a bank account, small, consistent actions add up in ways that can't be ignored. One workout doesn't make you fit. One healthy meal doesn't make you strong, but done consistently, on a schedule through a system, they transform your life. The magic isn't in the intensity of what you do occasionally. It's in the consistency of what you do repeatedly. And consistency is born from systems, not from feeling motivated all the time. This is why high performers focus, so much on habits. Habits are essentially mini-systems. They are the small decisions and routines that, once formed, require little mental effort to maintain. You brush your teeth every day not because you're wildly motivated, but because it's automatic. Imagine if working toward your goals felt just as routine and non-negotiable. That's the power of habits backed by systems. You don't need to think about them. You just do them. They create a sense of rhythm, and rhythm builds momentum. It's also important to build systems that are realistic and sustainable. Many people burn out because they create elaborate plans that are too difficult to maintain. The key is to start small. Build a system you can stick to even on your worst days. If your system requires maximum energy and motivation to execute, it will fail the moment life throws you a curveball. But if your system is designed for real life, with all its unpredictability, it becomes a steady anchor that keeps you grounded and moving forward. You also need to periodically review and adjust your systems. Life changes, and your systems should evolve with it. What worked for you last year might not work now. That's not a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. Systems aren't meant to be rigid, they're meant to support you. Keep what works, discard what doesn't, and stay focused on what gets results. When you take this approach, you're no longer chasing motivation. You're building a structure that delivers consistent outcomes regardless of how you feel. In the end, what separates amateurs from professionals isn't how motivated they are. It's how committed they are to the systems that drive their actions. When you have a system, you don't rely on morning pep talks or YouTube motivational videos to get started. You show up because that's what your system demands. You follow the process, and the process produces results. That's how real progress is made, not in emotional highs, but in daily execution. So instead of asking, "How can I stay motivated?" ask, "What system can I build that makes progress inevitable?" When you answer that question and act on it, you take full control of your journey. You're no longer hoping to feel motivated. You've built something better, a system that works even when you don't feel like it. And that's what leads to long-term success. Progress is the ultimate motivator. People often think they need motivation to make progress, but in reality, it's the other way around. Seeing progress, even the smallest kind, is what fuels the desire to keep going. There's something deeply satisfying and empowering about realizing that your effort is turning into real results. It validates your choices, boosts your confidence, and creates a positive feedback loop that encourages more action. The moment you notice growth, whether it's one extra push-up, a few more dollars saved, or another day checked off on your habit tracker, you start to believe in your ability to keep going. That belief is powerful. It turns doubts into drive and hesitation into hunger. Progress doesn't have to be massive to be meaningful. In fact, focusing too much on big leaps can often be discouraging. When you set your sights only on major achievements, you overlook the everyday victories that truly build momentum. One of the most important mindset shifts you can make is to start tracking and celebrating small wins. That could mean writing 100 words when your goal is a book, walking for 10 minutes when you don't feel like running, or drinking water instead of soda. These are small actions, but they are signals that you're moving in the right direction. And when you can see movement, you feel a sense of purpose. You feel like your efforts are paying off. That feeling is what drives you to take the next step. The brain responds powerfully to progress. Every time you complete a task or hit a goal, your brain releases dopamine, a chemical associated with pleasure and motivation. That rush makes you want to repeat the behavior, so progress doesn't just feel good, it literally rewires your brain to crave more progress. This is why starting is so important. When you take even one small action, you start a chain reaction in your body and mind. You generate energy, you boost your mood, and you shift your identity from someone who waits to someone who moves. Over time, the act of making progress becomes addictive in the best way possible. It pulls you forward. Many people stall in life because they're waiting for a big breakthrough before they give themselves permission to feel proud or excited. But that's the wrong approach. The breakthrough comes after consistent progress, not before it. Think of success like pushing a flywheel. At first, it takes a lot of effort to get it moving, but as you keep pushing, it spins faster and faster with less effort. Each push builds on the last. That's what momentum is, and it starts with progress. The early gains might seem small, even invisible, but they matter. They are proof that something is happening, that you're changing, that you're getting closer. Another reason progress is so motivating is because it creates a sense of control. One of the biggest reasons people give up is because they feel powerless, like their actions don't matter, like nothing they do makes a difference. But the moment you see progress, you reclaim that sense of agency. You realize that your input affects your outcome. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start acting like the author of your story. That shift in mindset is priceless. It makes you resilient. It helps you push through setbacks and stay focused, because you've seen with your own eyes that your actions create results. It's important to track your progress in tangible ways. Keeping a journal, using a habit tracker, or simply writing down what you accomplished each day can be a game changer. These small acts of reflection make your progress visible, and visibility fuels motivation. It's easy to forget how far you've come when you don't document the journey. But when you do, you build a record of success you can look back on whenever you need a reminder of your capability. Progress also reinforces your identity. Every step you take in the direction of your goal is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. If you write every day, you start to see yourself as a writer. If you train consistently, you begin to believe you're an athlete. Identity shapes behavior, and progress is what shapes identity. The more progress you make, the more your self-image evolves, and the easier it becomes to take the next action. You no longer need to force yourself. You begin to act in alignment with who you believe you are. This is why momentum becomes so powerful. It's not just physical movement. It's mental, emotional, and even spiritual. It's a shift from being stuck to being in flow. Once progress takes root, it creates a gravitational pull. You want to show up, not because you're being pushed by discipline alone, but because you're being pulled by the thrill of seeing results. That's real motivation, motivation born from motion. The best part is, once you build momentum through progress, it becomes easier and easier to sustain. You don't have to drag yourself forward every day. You ride the wave you've created. In the end, the question isn't whether you feel motivated, it's whether you're moving forward. Because if you're moving, motivation will follow. Progress, no matter how small, is never wasted. It's the seed of momentum, the fuel of growth, and the most honest source of inspiration you'll ever find.